right, today we're talking about paying attention, and we're talking about how when performance is measured, performance improves. And we'll get to that in a second, but I want to ask you a question. Have you ever driven down the highway and seen a police officer on the side of the road holding a radar gun at your car and not hit the brakes?
No.
I'm just curious.
Anytime I see a cop, whether he's got a radar gun or not, I
hit
slow
the brakes,
down.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the same with me. Like, it doesn't
If I
matter.
see something that looks like a cop, I slow down, even if I'm not sure.
It's one of those white cars where you're like, it's the same model as a police car.
It's got an extra thing on the rearview mirror
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
You can't tell what's going on, but you just stop. You slow down.
Yeah. So it's the same with me. I don't know that I've ever driven down the highway, because even there have been times where I realized, wait a minute, I'm actually driving below the speed limit.
Yeah.
But I still hit the brakes just because.
And then you get pulled over because you're going too slow.
Well, that's a different story.
kidding.
But the reason why you and I do that is because when performance is measured, performance improves. And so our performance is being measured by the officer with the radar gun, and the byproduct of that is that our performance improves. Okay? And so this comes from Pearson's law, if you ever heard this, and that's where this whole statement is. When performance is measured, performance improves.
Yeah.
And this guy somehow, I don't even know who Pearson is, but this statement became a law because it's so...
he proved it.
Yeah, it's so just consistently true and accurate that it's now known as Pearson's law. So I just found this to be really, really fascinating. And then we're going to talk about how this applies to our money.
Yeah.
Because the same thing applies to our money. And I think most people just don't understand that. And, and one of the analogies here, things that I like to think about, I don't know if you've ever been to any sort of nutritionist or anything like that, but I have. And one of the first things that they've done for me is I want you to do a food journal and write down everything that you eat.
I'll tell you what. You start making different decisions.
Oh, yeah.
When you know you're going to have to tell someone else what you're eating and write it down on paper.
Yeah. And that's the really, really powerful thing is that I noticed I didn't have to try to eat better. I just had to write down what I was eating.
Well, and I've even been to nutritionists who have they haven't even looked at it. Like, they didn't care what I was actually eating.
They just wanted you to write
They
it
just
down.
wanted me to write it down because they knew I would be paying more attention.
Yep. And that is the really fascinating thing about it, is that when we're simply paying attention, when we're measuring what we're doing, we perform better, even if we don't try to perform better. There's this example, I'll read this quote to you from, this is a financial blogger named Jesse Meacham.
Yep.
So he challenged himself to write down everything that he spent for an entire month. And I'm going to read to you his response after that. He said, the next month, my spending total was literally cut in half.
That is crazy.
The important item to note here is that I did not make any special effort to save any money. I simply had made the goal to write down everything I had spent.
Wow.
He said, let me repeat that. I made no extra effort to save money. I simply wrote down the item every time I spent money. That is fascinating.
It is fascinating.
That is so powerful, like when you understand that. And yet there's still so many people who are not doing this with their money. They're not paying attention. And even if you're not going to write it all down, like, use a tool to where you can actually pay attention to what's going on. Because when performance is measured, performance improves. One other kind of thing to hammer this home that I just read today that I'm like, oh, this is crazy, crazy. So I'm going to pull this up to share this with you if I can find it. According to a study done by the National Library of Medicine, participants who kept record of what they ate lost twice as much weight as those who didn't track what they ate.
I can't believe that.
So here we have it in the weight loss arena, 2 times as much. Over there, we had it with the financial arena. He said that he spent half of what he did by doing that. So there is something here.
There's something here. I mean, and like, what do you think about that? Like, if you were going to save half of what you're spending now, would that be worth it to you?
And I think everybody's like, well, there's no way.
There's no way.
My money's so tight. Like, there's no way. And I think a lot of us are like, well, I can maybe save 100 by doing it. There's no way. It would be cut in half.
Wow.
But yeah, what if?
What if?
And even if it were, like, this is the thing, even if it's only a 10% or 20% decrease, would it be worth actually paying attention to what's going on?
Yeah. It's a great
I
question.
don't know. I think it's a really good question to ask.
Yeah. Well, and we bring this up a lot because it is really a powerful question, I think. But when you're faced with this thing of like, well, I don't think it'll work and I don't want to do it, is probably more accurate.
Yeah.
But if someone were going to pay you to do this, would it be worth it? If someone were going to say, I will pay you $200 to write down everything you spend your money on for the month, would you do it?
Yeah.
What if they said $500?
That's a great way to
What
kind
if
of
they
frame
said $800?
it in your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, what's the minimum amount? Maybe $30. You'd say, no, that's not worth it, which I could understand. But from what this is saying, like, I can't imagine you find a whole lot more than that just by writing what you spend.
Yeah. So if you're not going to write it down, because this is all stuff that we talk about in our book. This is in chapter 4, I believe. It's also, we talk about this in our True Financial Freedom class. But if you're going to do this, like, you can actually write it down. But another way you could do this, if you want something a little bit simpler, is using a tool called Personal Capital, in which that tool will allow you to see exactly where you've been spending your money. So if you aren't tracking it, you aren't paying attention to where it's going, simple tool, you can go in there and plug in your information on how to do that. Now, the tool, like, if you just log into Personal Capital, it's not going to show you how to do this. But I do have a free tutorial you can check out if you want to see how to use Personal Capital, which is a free tool, and how to use it to do what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So if you go to seedtime.com/cashflow, you can check that video out, and that will show you exactly how to do what we're talking about in this situation, how to use that tool.
I love this option because it just feels a whole lot easier. And it feels like you can find out exactly what you're spending your money on really fast, right?
Yeah. Now, that said, like, I personally I think the best thing is to literally write everything down, but I know, just because I know that like 98% of the people listening aren't going to do that. And so that's why I present the easier option. Even if it isn't going to get you as good a results, like, it's still going to be really, really helpful to be able to look, and my encouragement would be to check 2 times a week, set a reminder on your phone, check 2 times a week in Personal Capital to see where you've spent your money, just to have a pulse on it and to see where things are going. That way there's no surprises at the end of the month. There's no, man, where did all the money go? Like,
Right.
that will help with that,
Yeah.
And it can make a big, big deal.
That's huge. Yeah, so I guess this is your homework, right? If you are not currently doing this, start tracking what you're spending. And if you're not going to write it down every time, then go to Personal Capital and do that.
Yeah, and check out that link, seedtime.com/cashflow, and I will show you in there a video on how to set this up, how to do it, and you can look over my shoulder to see how to do it. So yeah, that's your homework for the day, and we'll see you in the next one.
We really love creating fresh content for you each week, but if you have not checked out our book, Simple Money, Rich Life, this really is our best work, and we have some free resources we want to tell you about.
So if you enjoy listening to our soothing voices, then you can download chapter 1 of the audiobook.
And if you prefer to read, we have the first 2 chapters of the ebook version.
Or we even have a 5-week book study outline based on this book. And you can download all of this for free at seedtime.com/sample.